Welcome to Dojo Live, the place where top minds in travel and hospitality check in to share insights and breakthroughs shaping the industry. Brought to you by Encora, your trusted partner for AI, cloud, and data-driven innovation. Enjoy your stay. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Encora's Dojo Live, where we have candid conversations with industry leaders tackling the biggest technology challenges in travel and hospitality. I am Kim Lantis, your host today, this June 13th. Happy Friday the 13th, 2025. And today we're wrapping up our Empowering the Ecosystem Insights from Hospitality's Tech Enablers series. Over the past 2 weeks, we've explored what it really means to support innovation, from smarter procurement and global project delivery to better vendor storytelling and even the power of influence. To close out the series, we're diving into the science of smart consulting, moving from gut feel to data-driven collaboration. This is with David Chestler, President, and Danielle Johnson, Strategic Advisor, EMEA at Provision Partners. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Kim.
Hello. Today's conversation is going to be exploring how consultants and the companies they serve can embrace modern tools, like Agentic AI, shifting their mindsets and making strategy work that's repeatable, contextual, and client specific. So, yay, we're so happy. But let's first kick off with some personal context. David, you've been part of the hospitality evolution for your entire career, which pretty much keeps you. I'm curious as to what keeps you in the game and why transforming consulting models is such an urgent issue in the industry right now.
Well, thank you, Kim, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you, along with Daniel and the team. Being in the business, hospitality gets into your blood. I've done it since youth. My grandfather was in the business, so travel and hospitality was natural. And the consulting, after years of working in the sector, wanted to do something that was exciting and fun still in the sector. And, having hired other consultants in my career, wanted to do it differently. And one of our founders, Greg Pesic, was very vocal about that when we started talking about the firm and forming it. That's really the genius of staying with an industry that you love, giving back to an industry that's provided so well to the companies and teammates that I've had. It's never just one person, it takes a team. So this seemed a natural progression to keep me in the business. And then finding people like Daniel that are like-minded and want to help the world, it seemed a natural progression to start working in collaboration with folks like that. So that's really what's kept me going. People like Daniel and Andrea and others that are in our firm and the colleagues that we run into at High Tech shortly.
That's right. And welcome, Daniel, and congratulations on your new transition to Provision Partners. Let's talk a bit about your background. I know it spans continents. David spans decades.
Ooh, throwing shade.
Daniel's spanning continents. I'm curious also, same question. What inspired you to kind of take this path, join Provision, and what are you seeing specifically across EMEA where you're located?
Yeah, so David he's stretching the truth. I didn't want to join Provision, but they have some information on me and I didn't want it to get out. So I'm stuck here. It's no, just kidding. The vision that Greg and David have is inspiring. I'm going to echo just exactly what David said. It's working in this industry that has given us so much and has so many interesting, innovative things happening. It's so broad. It's chock full with challenges, and that's fun. That makes it interesting. So yeah, I'm thrilled to be representing Provision Partners here in Europe. And helping to navigate businesses, tech businesses for growth in hospitality, both U.S.-based businesses that are looking to tackle EMEA, or vice versa. So thrilled to be working with David. It's going to be, I think this is, I was trying to do the numbers. I think this will be my 24th high tech, 23rd high tech,
Wow.
because that includes Dubai and Europe, when they had high tech Europe. But it'll be the first time doing it elbow to elbow with the likes of David and Andrea and team. So I'm pretty excited. It's going to be
I love
an
it.
intern, but I'm super
So
excited.
I stand corrected. Your career is spanning decades as well,
As
not just.
well, yeah.
I love it.
I shaved off the beard because I would be just as white as David. So yeah.
I love it. Thank you both. Thank you for your history. Thank you for your passion. With that, let's dive into it. It is Friday the 13th. I would like to start off with superstitions. What are the most common and perhaps misguided beliefs you see among vendors or hoteliers when it comes to tech selection and consulting? David, I know that you've talked before about the absurdity of starting consulting with the engagement mindset of I just met you and now I know how to fix you. What kinds of myths need busting?
Well, I think the whole idea of a consultant being a subject matter expert, we give them a lot of guru status, many times without really understanding the depth. There was a blog that I shared with the team about the best people for a founding team, and it talked about T people, that are able to do a number of things but go really deep in a certain area. And consultants, they have to be really good, especially at the tip of the spear side, at understanding a lot of things and being able to speak to it, but not to be subject matter expertise. And that's where I see a lot of consultants that come in and basically use the same prescription to apply at every opportunity. The same as they used to say, if you bring a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And the idea is that there's such a multifaceted arena that we work in hospitality and travel, with legacy technologies and the new generation technologies that are starting to machinate together. Being a consultant, saying I could come in and solve your problem, when you don't know the business, you don't know the company, you don't know their comp set, you don't know their pricing, you don't know what they're offering, and then to come up with a solution or an outcome, that takes a lot of discovery and understanding and expertise. And that's why we have the partners with Provision, because we like to bring in smart, industry specific folks, right? Not that have to be trained up. And more to the myth part that, everything is a nail when you have a hammer. There are subtleties to the business. And, even understanding payments and responsibilities across borders for the intricacies of data and things of that nature. Just because you touch one system, it many times has an effect across others. And to understand that in advance, and before you even say, here's what I could do, it'll take me 6 months and X dollars, there has to be the discovery phase and understanding phase. And that's something that we work very hard on. And we have a methodology focused or predicated on the big four, right? How they bring in the methodologies to understand this. That's not to say that, we know everything. It's how do we explore collaboratively and become much more effective at the prescription that we are going to provide. And I think that's the myth that I want to break, is that not everything's a nail when you're a consultant that you could just smack and it's solved. That
Yeah.
there is a real understanding that has to go on to it.
I imagine too, Daniel, that there's often a lot of assumptions or blind spots that are especially common in international or emerging
Yeah.
markets when it comes to vendor strategy or partnerships. What are some of those?
Yeah. I want to talk to that, but I just wanted to say that which David just shared is precisely the reason I wanted to get involved with Provision Partners, because it's a bit of a paradox, right? As a consultant, you are you're paid to provide insight, but to go into it not with the I know everything kind of attitude. Somebody told me once upon a time that I know is the lowest form of consciousness. If you just go into it with I've got the answer, then you're really not paying attention. And David and his team and the culture of Provision is very much about listening to the client, listening to their needs, and working very collaboratively. And that's inspiring to me, rather than rinse and repeat kind of um, following a recipe, because another adage, no man walks into the same river twice. I mean, it is moving, it's changing. Our industry is changing, and so you need to be have a bit of humility in going into these conversations. So I just want to say that a little bit. So about trends and some of those assumptions, I think one of the biggest assumptions, we've got a lot of hotel tech that comes out of North America, and that's not to say that there aren't innovations that are happening elsewhere in the world, because there certainly are. But the flow of hotel technology and a lot of the growth that comes out of North American firms, the assumption in growth market penetration in other parts of the world is often very focused on the attraction of the market, the attractiveness of the market, really focusing on the TAM and SAM and so on, and not really thinking about how well they're fit to the market, and really not taking into consideration the nuances of the various of their markets that they want to penetrate. And I think that probably the biggest mistake, and this is probably familiar to a lot of folks, Europe is not the United States of Europe, and just because you're in hospitality space does not mean you can easily penetrate the 28 countries of the European Union and surrounding region. That's probably getting back to your initial question about superstition. I think that's a notion that a lot of organizations really neglect. They think about it, the attractiveness of the market. They don't really necessarily think about how well they are fit to that market.
Interesting. And that brings up a piece of the fit in terms of collaboration, coordination. I know both of these words are very important to the both of you.
Yeah.
What's the difference? What's the difference between the two, and why do both matter in hospitality consulting? Daniel, we'll go with you first.
So I like this. In founding Venza, we worked on a distinction between responsibility and accountability, and I think this is in a very similar fashion, with the notion of cooperating is very much an organization. To me, an organization has their lane. They're doing their thing. Their partners and their related organizations are doing their thing, and they may coordinate in their actions. The collaboration is that deeper sense. That is that shared ownership of an outcome, and that's where I think of it in terms of accountability. It's really about it's more than just being elbow to elbow on a task. It's really about owning those results, and it's a much more profound relationship.
Yeah, I concur. I think, again, coordination, collaboration, part of the transformation or the necessity for transformation needs to be managed by project management. It needs to have that type of oversight, because you have so many different silos within the businesses these days, either vendor side or supply side. And even with management companies creating their own digital teams and IT organizations and vetting for their independence versus the brands, there's a lot of coordination needed to make sure that you are working across these operational units. Collaboration is when you now take down those silos and enable that cross-functional communication to enable that outcome that the organization from the top level is seeking. And that project management office or that change management organizational involvement, that's critical to the coordination across the business. But the collaboration part is really where the rubber meets road, and you're exchanging, I don't want to say group think or those types of ideas, but that really is where you are able to make transformation. And I think that's a lot of what consultants should be espousing, is that there needs to be more involvement. We use a methodology called design-led thinking because we want the holistic view of a business and the users, which is very important when you're building out a technology or utilizations of technology. And that's something that we've started using, not just our own gut feel as we're old and wise, but we're starting to use technologies.
Yeah.
And some of the technologies we'll talk about shortly with a partner, we're using their agentic tools because we're able to do a lot more from an outside looking in that gives us an indication of where there are these, you used the term before, blind spots. And as consultants, when we come in and say, oh, we're going to look at the business, a lot of this work can be done to understand who's the comp set. Apologies. See, they want to know. And how do we actually move forward with that and using the technology? So Daniel can share some of what we've done there with Agentic while I answer the phone.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And that's
It's Friday before high tech. It's
it's a perfect segue because you talked about earlier in the show, David, legacy versus next gen moment, which this transition is going to have to require a lot of that collaboration, that coordination. In your opinion, how should consultants and tech leaders be adapting to meet the demands of AI first kind of automation heavy landscape? And to that point, agentic AI.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit to what it is, what agentic AI for dummies and how can it be used by consultants, vendors, and hoteliers?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, David.
You go.
So I mean, in thinking in terms of in the past, in years past, when interacting with consultants, usually there's there's a 7 stages of some kind of testing. You look at your objectives. 1, you're assessing your data points. You do some preliminary tests. You validate the tests. You walk down the steps. Eventually, 7th stage, you get to optimizing operationalizing, and you're scaling. So the experience I've had recently since starting with Provision is those important stages of testing and then retesting and measuring. In the past, we've had experiences where we would test against parameters, a few different parameters, statistical models. You gather those, and then you analyze and to see if there's a statistical significance against those parameters. And I can think of one instance in particular where we were looking at. We invested probably about a month and a half working with a consultant, a statistical firm, and we were looking at some go-to-market strategies. And we were looking against 5 or 6 parameters for attractiveness of markets, and about 5 or 6 parameters for fitness against those markets. And we came up with a pretty robust vision of our next steps. The difference now with and David had made mention of this partnership, and that was what really got me excited about working with Provision, is the partnership with the Vitalis. It's based here in Europe, in Munich. And we're not talking 5 or 6 parameters. We're talking 50,000 parameters. And to be able to do that, in a matter of a couple of weeks. Now, that is some serious computational power that's involved. And it is, to me, an absolute game changer. And the amount of uh, insight that can come from that is is just incredible. Um, the value that provision brings is then it is just like those the old school, steps of the validation, and making sure that the design interventions are appropriate for the domain.
Hmm.
Wow, it is so powerful, and you can get these kinds of results in a fraction of the time, and repeat them and to benchmark. That's next level.
Hmm. Well,
So, like with generative, Kim, how that transformed and being able to create, agentic is able to perform functions without human intervention, right? So now, as Daniel's espousing, with all of these parameters, able to now scour the internet, right? And come back with information. And that's even before we get into the companies and start working with their real data, right? Which is
Yeah.
where the real knowledge comes from. It allows us to start to create the spider graphs and understand, like we talked about, the blind spots, the areas or gaps of capability. And we could then create a comp set, just like hotels do with the comp set and rates. We're able to do that with customers. We've done it for brands. We've done it for central res systems. So we could look at multiple central res systems and start to find the gaps in their competitive positioning. And a lot of that without having to involve the companies.
Yeah.
So the
well,
lift that used to be there, the
Yes.
requirement to have so many participants, like I said, I've got to spend hours with each of these people. I could do a lot in advance so that I can start to see where those blind spots or gaps are, which makes my ability as a consultant with some strategery much more effective at going into the business and helping them focus right on the issue and
mhm.
make corrective steps and then track and measure that.
Hmm.
KPIs, OKRs, all of those things that the board loves to see. Board, not Borg, board. And that's really where we want to focus, is trying to give those types of outcomes, that type of data-driven decision making to our customers faster, so that when
Mhm.
we do engage, it's very prescriptive in nature and we know what
Mhm.
we need to do and we can give a better forecast of cost
Well,
and
Yeah.
timing.
well, and
Yeah.
time.
Sorry.
Eventually the Borg probably will want to get how far away are we from that? But that's a different conversation for today. So you got it. So I got it. With Agentic AI, we're able to go broader, deeper, much faster, get the personalization, get the context, be more strategic. So this is creating a type of also mm, iterative thing, I'm assuming. And then to your
Hmm.
point, Daniel, it's also statistically significant. It's not just finding this
Yeah.
thing that's an odd. It's like this is the thing that can make a difference.
Yeah. And yeah, and referencing statistics. I mean, people love to reference. I mean, what is it? 86% of statistics are invented on the spot. The whole notion of statistics, and
See what you did there.
one of my favorite adages is people have a relationship to statistics like a drunk does to a lamppost, more for support and less for illumination. Um, I think what's really powerful about this approach that David and Provision have charted out with our friends at Tellus is it it can help to eliminate some of that human bias that I want to focus. I want to cherry pick. I'm going to cherry pick a certain stats, and then make business decisions against it. It can provide so much more holistically an evaluation of the state of play, and then make design those interventions on how to make steps, and evaluate with causality AI. Evaluate, okay, make these steps, I make these changes, I make these things happen. What will be the outcome? And then also very importantly, when you're working with domain experts like David and Provision, is that you can also uncover counterfactuals. So just an AI program might not be able to uncover those if something doesn't happen, if an intervention does not happen, if we as an organization decide not to expand and open that office in the Nordics, if we opt against that as an organization, we're not going to attend high tech next year. What? Okay, what would be the outcome of that? And a lot of times, without the assistance of domain experts, you can't smoke out those counterfactuals, and that's where this marriage between the likes of Provision and Vitellus, or Consulting 2.0, or whatever you want to call it, this new age is a powerful new way of getting past biases and really looking at things holistically.
Super interesting, this example of collaboration, coordination, and action. Do you have any real world examples? And I know it's my understanding that it's a little early still, but can you walk us through maybe a client situation where this agentic AI driven approach is delivering some of these faster, more strategic results?
I can give you one example. One that I mentioned was that central reservation system. Being able to look outside and figure out how create a benchmark, if you will, and compare these systems. There has to be a great number of variables to do that, and we've been doing that. And that's one of the reports that we generated that allows us to see where the gaps in the go-to-market for a specific platform exists, and how they're perceived even by their customers, who are, we're able to find interviews where they're talking. There's quite a bit that you'll find on the internet when the technology is doing the searching. And it brings back quite a bit that allows the experts, members of my team and others, to go through it with a fine-tooth comb and identify these areas. And like I said, having graphed or virtualized the data, you're able to see some things that you might not just in ones and zeros. And I think that's what's exciting about using these technologies, is the visual and virtualization of the data that allows you to start picking up on some of the detail when it might be obfuscated in other reports and not dashboards or similar. And I think, like I said, being able to do this right at the onset, where we can get a better understanding before we're deeply engaged, gives us a speed to market. And I've said this a number of times to a lot of people: speed wins.
All right.
That's almost one of those that, like Daniel did. He's got T-shirts and needlepoint. It's one of those phrases, right? Speed wins.
And these insights in this moment in time, with unprecedented. I sound like a pundit on a news program, but in these unprecedented times of such uncertainty, volatility in the marketplace, having verifiable, validated information about your potential, that's a must-have today. That is to be expected. That is the kind of an investment that a technology company needs to be thinking about in today's environment. Recently, we recently heard about how the impact on investment that's happening right now because of volatility, geopolitically, etc. What is the adage? Capital is a coward. The investors are going to be looking for organizations that can deliver, that can show that they can deliver, and having that validated information and David was referencing how it's presented in a way that is palpable, that can tell the story quickly. That power and speed, unlike ever before.
Absolutely. You know, I know this particular use case that you were bringing up, David, was for a specific platform and in their specific market. But you also utilizing this type of agentic AI in a broader sense to identify major shifts or trends across the entire industry? I mean, what is it that right now, as a whole, we should not be ignoring? And is that varying the industry as a whole, but also across geographies like Europe and the Middle East or US based for in your case, David?
Well, we've talked about it before. Everyone's using AI in some form or fashion. AI washing was a term we used before, right? I think what you're finding now, the agentic component can be used internally, externally. Are we using agent to agent so that there's a new form of communication? Are we loading the agents with our preferred data so that it's able to shop and perform functions, even design trips for us? That's what everyone's testing. The larger entities, the Microsoft, AWS, ChatGPT, these companies, the Googles, they're all very large entities with great laboratories that are enable the larger entities that we're also collaborating with to experiment. We like some of the universities and some of those near universities that are coming out with some newer technologies and testing the Jurassic Park fences. It really is going to be important. The question still comes up: how do I pay for it? What's the value proposition? And that's a very real question right now, because there are some market headwinds. Earnings on the street are still being achieved, especially domestically, but there's some headwinds. And I think, how do we pay for it? How do we prioritize?
Yes.
That's going to be very important in the boardrooms now. And I believe by having tools like we're talking about and being able to identify the blind spots and gaps competitively even, and benchmark it numerically so that I now can start to set goals and I can start to move and test things going forward, whether it's savings, whether it's optimization. There are any number of factors and facets that can be identified. That's where the skill and the expertise is going to become critical. Having the technology, a lot of people can do that, but how to use it is going to be mission critical. And I think that's why, we love Ancora. We love a lot of the friendships we've built, the expertise that you guys bring, and the relationships with your clients. It's a testament. So that's why we, again, continue to focus on working with best of breed and the TELUS, Ancora, Data. We have a number of those companies, and Provision Partners is dedicated to moving the industry forward. I'm off the soapbox. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, and I love it. It brings me kind of full circle, I think, to what you were saying at the very start of the conversation, Daniel, about the 7 steps, right? There's still the human involved. It's just
Yeah.
about how deep can we get in each one of those steps? How quickly can we move in those steps? But there's still this conversation, collaboration, coordination happening at the human scale. Anything to add kind of to that of what David had to say as we're coming to the end of our conversation, if you can believe it or not?
I don't want to have the last word because what David was saying just was really great. Although I want to say, as a fan of Dojo Live, I was listening to some of your conversations. Uh, Alan Young was fantastic the other day, as he always is. He's an example of when he was wearing a consulting hat many years ago. Worked with my team, and yeah, he's fantastic. But referencing Custodio call, your podcast from a few days ago, referencing how AI is, he thinks of it like an employee, and I
Employee.
think that
Yep.
is spot on. I mean, that is thinking of it in that way. How are you when you're hiring? You think about what your needs are, what accountabilities you need to have fulfilled within your organization. Think of it in the same way, and then benchmark how well it's working for you. And that to me is is something we should keep in mind.
Absolutely. AI is an employee, and then to Alan's point, it was bringing that data to the employees and making everyone
Yeah.
literate in what it is that they're working
Yeah.
with and seeing and unafraid, which goes back, I think, even almost a year ago, David, when we first started talking about AI being scary and the literacy that comes along with it. And absolutely, thank you. Thank you for that. Here we are, finally a week away, not even a week anymore. On Monday,
Days,
we start
hours.
high tech, hours away from high tech. Final advice here, a practical takeaway for the conference coming up. Leaders who've helped companies scale, reposition, partner for decades. It's you guys. What is your number one tip for vendors, hoteliers heading into high tech next week?
Oh, do some research before you get there. Just look at
With Agentic AI.
Yeah. Well, you can actually, but look at the schedule. Look who the speakers are. Go and find some knowledge. Meet some people. The exhibit hall is phenomenal, and an opportunity to really sit down and talk to some people who want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But do the research first, so you kind of map out who you're going to see and what you want to talk about. It makes it better for all parties. And if you need help with that, there are a bunch of us around. There are a number of consultants that will be there. HFTP is brilliant at enabling you to select a consultant to help give you a tour of the exhibit hall. Many times that can be helpful. HFTP is phenomenal. This event is phenomenal, and we're just excited to be part of this industry and supporting at such an amazing event with you and your pink blazer.
Yeah. My suggestion, everything that David said is spot on. My suggestion is hydrate. Drink plenty of water.
Not alcohol.
Yeah, and stay away as much as you possibly can from the booze, because you want to be there. You want to have your conversations. You want to be able to take it all in. And so, comfortable shoes and hydrate.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for this amazing conversation on how technology, AI, isn't being used just by the tech companies, but by the consultants as well. And it's a great end to our Empowering the Ecosystem series for sure. Big thank you to David Chestler and Daniel Johnson of Provision Partners for sharing your insights on how today's consulting model is in fact evolving. Now, before we go, if our audience wants to connect with either one of you or learn more about Provision and what it is that you can do for them, what's the best way for them to do that?
LinkedIn, our website, or I'll see you at High Tech on Monday, and look forward to having you come up and say hello.
I love it.
Right on.
Same. All right, perfect, fantastic. Thank you once again, and thank you to our sponsor, Ancora, for making these amazing conversations a possibility. Ancora does partner with leading tech and travel and hospitality companies to accelerate their innovation through world-class engineering solutions. And if you enjoyed this series, be sure to follow Dojo Live across a lot of socials, as well as check out our website where all of the conversations are permanently housed. That's dojo.live. And while we do not have a next series, we're in the works. Can't announce it to you yet. Don't know quite just yet, but we too will be at High Tech next week. As David already said, I'll be in my pink blazer. So if you see me around, do tap me on the shoulder for a 5-minute pop-up interview. Also scheduling 15-minute feature interviews. We'll be rolling that all out next week and then the days after High Tech as well. And it's going to be a really good time. So until then, stay curious, stay innovative, and bye for now. Daniel, David, a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Kim.
Same.
See you.